The Federal Reserve widely expected to cut rates again tomorrow, but would their best move be no move at all?
Our Fox panel is here now to discuss it, including Pat Powell from Powell Financial, Wayne Rogers from Wayne Rogers & Company, Charles Payne of WStreet.com, and Victoria Barrett from Forbes. Good to have all of you. I'm going to start with Wayne. And let's begin first. Oh, aside from the fact that we also have Peter Schiff, I wanted to mention Peter Schiff, author of Crash Proof. This is a huge panel that is growing as we speak. Wayne, you get first crack at this one. We already saw a three-quarter point cut just a week ago today. Do you think there should be any cut at all tomorrow?
No, I have this same feeling that I think somewhat that David, there's too much fiddling with this thing. In other words, Greenspan brought a lot of this on by, fine-tuning down to 1%. And now we're trying to fine-tune again. I don't understand all of that. This fiddling with the interest rates so much, so quickly, is not going to cure something right away. It has a long-term effect, 6 to 9 months out, and I just don't see that happening anytime soon. And also, they're overdoing it. They're constantly got their hands on the dial. They ought to let it go. The economy can take care of itself in many cases.
Well, and Peter Schiff, I asked David Malpass, I'll ask you, if the Fed does cut rates, even just a quarter of a point, are they actually bailing out Wall Street when the folks out in the street are going to have to pay in terms of the diminishing of the value of their dollar?
Well, of course. I mean, everybody's going to pay. They're trying to bail out their own political careers. All they can see is as far as the next election. If they really cared about the long-term health of this economy, they wouldn't be looking for these short-term stimulus gimmicks. The Fed should be raising interest rates, not cutting them, not standing back. They need to be several hundred basis points higher than they are right now. And the Fed, we need to be embracing this recession, not resisting it. We need to purge our economy from these imbalances. We need to go back to a viable economy. The longer we do this, the bigger the hole we're digging for ourselves.
Well, Charles, I can see, just wants to embrace the recession in a way, right?
And to Peter's point, I do believe a year from now rates will be higher. I think we'll be at 4.5, maybe, so. But right now, I think they're doing the right thing. When Wayne says that the Greenspan fiddled around with it to 1%, the mistake he made was he left it there too long. It was there for a whole year. The good thing right now is Ben Bernanke is really intelligent. I don't know that even I or anyone has given him enough credit. I think we may look back from now and say this guy was a genius. He was maybe he was the maestro. Because, you can always raise rates. If they've overshot, which the Fed usually does, they have a chance to adjust it. But I think right now, considering the pressure that they're under and the credibility factor, they have to cut 50
Pat, is he too clever by half? That is, with all this fiddling, does that give a signal that perhaps the Fed doesn't know exactly what it's doing?
You're right. I mean, Charles may be right, but I think the more likely scenario is that he is over-fiddling. I think this is welfare for Wall Street. And I think I'm very concerned about us going so far. The three-quarters of a point was way overblown last week. There was no call for it.
Was it because of that French bank, by the way?
It might be. The French bank might have contributed to it. There was some meltdown around the world, but nothing like the 87 crash. And the 87 crash, Greenspan lowered rates 60 basis points. Three-quarters of a point was totally unnecessary. I'm very concerned about where this is going. We're using up all of our ammunition, and we're not in recession.
Victoria Barrett, Adam Shapiro from Washington was saying that we got to watch and see what some of these Federal Reserve bigwigs are going to say, particularly Charles Plosser, who is the inflation hawk.
Right.
You talk to anybody, they see these prices going higher in every single store into which they go. What do you think about inflation?
Yeah, that's a real problem. People are starting to notice. We all have a sense that it's happening, and the Fed looks like it's oblivious to that. Now, they'll probably come out and say that they aren't oblivious to that, but the fact is that last week's cut looked like they were responding to the stock market, not being proactive about what's going to happen in our economy looking forward. Look, what we have to realize here, it's easy to criticize them, but what they're trying to do is thwart a potentially dangerous feedback cycle where you have weakness in the credit market. That leads businesses to get really conservative, not spend, potentially lay off workers. Higher unemployment means lower consumer spending. That would lead to more unemployment. There's a potential for this credit cycle to bubble over into the rest of the economy. And if low interest rates would stop that from happening, that would be a good thing.
Wayne, really quickly, the Fed has two mandates. One is to keep the value of the dollar, and two is to make sure that not too many people are unemployed. Should it only have one, maintaining the value of the dollar?
No, those two things are okay. What it shouldn't be doing is trying to correct an economic problem by jiggling interest rates. Interest rates are not going to do it. This problem was caused by the housing meltdown. That was caused by all of the derivatives. That is a fundamental change in the way that assets are valued. It has nothing to do with the interest rate. So the Fed is just jiggling something here that is not really going to have an effect.
Okay, we'll hear a lot more